This is lecture 12 of the electronics course, and we are still continuing our discussion on digital electronics. So far, whatever kind of circuits that we have seen, even the time dependent ones, they depend on some instantaneous effects. So for example, if you apply a certain input, then accordingly the input state will change depending on the input at that point of time. So these are instantaneous. You give an input and immediately the output changes according to what the input is. So these kinds of circuits are called combinational circuits. So circuits can be of these two broad types. The combinational type, where you apply an input, you get some output. So this is good for doing computations. But there is another kind of circuit. We call them sequential circuits. Sequential circuits, the output doesn't depend only on what the input state is. It also depends on what was its previous state before this. So input and the current state decides what is going to be the output state. So you can think of sequential circuits as having some sort of memory. The output that you get from these circuits will depend also on what is their current state. So just because you have a certain input doesn't mean you will get a corresponding output. It will also depend on currently what is stored in that circuit. So these kinds of circuits or devices, the sequential ones, can also be used for programming and for storing data. Because then you can say things like, if your current state is, so we are doing digital, so states are always 0 or 1. So if your current state is 1 and I'm giving you a certain output, then you keep your output as 1 or you change it to 0. But if your current state is something else, then you do it the other way. So you can have statements like that, and you can use it also to store information. So if you stored one bit of information in a certain device, and then depending on your input, you want to change it if it is 1 or if it is 0. So you can also use this for data storage. Last time I briefly just mentioned in a couple of minutes about microprocessor programming, and I specified over there that your processors have what are called data registers. These registers are just some small memory location which can store one 8-bit or 16-bit kind of number. So if you want to have some kind of information register, if you want to make an information register electronically, this is the way to do it. You will use a sequential device as your information register. So it will store data over there, or you can store some programming instruction over there. So today we are going to be looking at information registers which are called flip-flops. So let's look at these in some detail. So the first device that we are going to look at is called an RS flip-flop, or sometimes just abbreviated as RSFF. So here is what the circuit diagram looks like. But by the way, there are various ways of doing RS flip-flops. Depending on what book you're following, you may find a slightly different way of implementing this thing. The important thing is how the logic of the circuit works. So what I'm following over here is what Eggleston does. So you need over here two NAND gates. This one has an input called S or set. This one has an input called R or reset. Their outputs are called Q and Q bar, and there is, you can think of this as there being a feedback. So the first NAND gate has an input from S and Q bar, and the second NAND gate has an input from R and Q. So let's check what happens depending on the values of R and S. So if R is 0, so let's take first case, R is 0, S is 1. Well, you can see that if R is 0, then no, okay, let's do Q first. So Q is the NAND of S and Q bar. So S and Q bar complement. So if you use De Morgan's theorem, this is just S bar or Q. Now S bar is 0. So 0 plus Q is going to be Q. And what happens to Q bar? Sorry. S was 1. So S bar was 0. No, that's right. That's right. Q is Q. Q bar is the NAND of Q and R. So this is R is what? R is 0. 0 and anything is 0. So this is 0 bar. So this is 1. And if Q bar is 1, then Q has to be 0. So you see, when R is 0, S is 1, and this is called the set condition, then Q becomes 0, Q bar becomes 1. Let's check the second case. When R is 1 and S is 0, you can tell that because this is symmetric, basically the opposite thing is going to happen. So you can work it out yourself. In this case, you will get Q bar equal to 0, Q equal to 1. The more interesting cases are when both of these inputs are equal. So let's see what happens when R is 1 and S is also 1. In this case, Q is going to be S dot Q bar bar. So this is 1 and Q bar bar, which is Q, and Q bar, which is R and Q bar. This is again, this is Q bar. So Q remains Q, Q bar remains Q bar. You can't tell whether it is 1 or 0. Basically, they just retain their previous state. So we say this is the no change state. So if you apply R and S both equal to 1, then whatever was the previous state of Q, earlier because of a previous computation, Q may have had a value 0, 1, whatever. So now because R and S are both 1, this keeps that same state. Nothing changes. And then if you take the fourth case, which is R and S both equal to 0, then what you will find is that Q is 0 and Q bar bar, which is 1, and Q bar is 1 and Q. Oh, sorry, not 1. 0 and Q bar is also 1. But this is strange because you would expect Q and Q bar to be opposite. You don't want them to be the same. So this is an undesired state. So whenever you are using an RS flip-flop, you want to make sure that your R and S both don't become 0. So depending on whether you are in the set condition or the reset condition, either one of Q and Q bar will become 0 and the other will become 1. If you set R and S both to be equal to 1, then the previous state will not change. So this is how you can manipulate this device called an RS flip-flop. So this is, you can sometimes write it as so this is the symbol for an RS flip-flop. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is a variant, a slight variation of this RS flip-flop, and this is called the clocked RS flip-flop. In this one, I have two NAND gates. There is also a third kind of signal, if you want to call it, called the clock. And then this goes to your usual RS flip-flop. So if you remember, this part of it is just your usual RS flip-flop. So this is an RS flip-flop, but you've provided some change in the input over here, and there's also a clock pulse which is going to change things. So this clock pulse is essentially like a like some sort of a pulse which comes like this. So this is your clock. So sometimes it will increase and become 1, sometimes it will decrease and become 0, and so on. So the point of putting this clock is it gives you one more additional layer of control. Point is, you can change the state of your flip-flop by changing what R and S inputs you're giving to it. But you also want one more level of control. So for example, maybe you have changed R and S. Maybe it has gone to 1 0 state or the 0 1 state. But still, you only want to change the state of your flip-flop at certain times. Only when you want it to increase or decrease, you want the state to change. You don't want it to change based only on R and S. So that is where this clock input also comes into play. If you want, you can denote this in two ways. No, one way. So this is your RS flip-flop, the usual one. And then you put one more thing over here. This is your clock. So this is the symbol for the clocked RS flip-flop. Now what happens in this particular thing? When the clock pulse input is 0, then you can see that for these first two NAND gates, the output is going to be 1. So both R and S equal to 1. So let's call this over here S prime and R prime. So when clock is 0, S prime and R prime are both 1. And now if you go back and see what happens to your RS flip-flop when both of these are equal to 1, this is the no change state. So then Q bar don't change. So the previous state is still retained. But when clock equal to 1, and now if only one of R or S is 0, if clock equal to 1 and only one of R or S is 0, then you see the S prime and R prime state will either be 0 1 or 1 0, depending on whether R or S was 0. So then this is the set or the reset condition. So accordingly Q bar will either become 0 1 or 1 0. And of course, if clock equal to 1 and if S and R are both 1, then you're in trouble because R prime and S prime both become 0. And if R prime, S prime both become 0, then this is an undesired state. So we don't want to do that. So this clock provides some kind of control over when your state should change. If clock is 0, then no matter what happens to S and R, it doesn't matter. You are not going to be able to change the state of your flip-flop. But it's only when clock is 1 that you can change it. So one additional layer of control you have got over here. So we've seen two kinds of RS flip-flops, the usual one and then the clocked one. But both of these suffer from this problem that if you give this input where R and S are both 0, then you reach this undesired state. So in order to avoid this problem of an undesired state, in order to kind of get rid of that possibility altogether, there is what is called the JK flip-flop. And it's called JK just, I think it's based on the initials of the person who invented it. So advantage of JK flip-flop is that it has absolutely no invalid states. All states are valid. It will give you some valid output whatever your input may be. And this is the most commonly used flip-flop in application. So this is often called the universal flip-flop. Either this one or variants of this are used for most serious applications. Once again, there can be various ways of writing down the JK flip-flop, and depending on how you construct it, there might be slight variations in the logic. I'm sticking to what Eggleston has done. So in the JK flip-flop, so similar to the clock RS flip-flop that we had, here is your NAND gate. It also takes in input from the clock pulse. So now these two inputs are called J and K, they are not called RS. The output of this you feed to your RS flip-flop. And this is your output Q and Q bar. So far this is exactly like the clocked RS flip-flop. Now here comes the difference. What we are going to do is we are going to take feedback from the output to the initial AND gate. So from Q bar, we will come here, and from Q, we will come here. So these are actually 3 input NAND gates. One is the clock, one is the external input, and one is feedback from the output. So this is your JK flip-flop, and this is denoted as JK, and there is one clock. So this is your JK flip-flop. How does this work? Okay. Now, when J and K are both 0, then the output of the NAND gate, the initial NAND gates, are both 1. So S and R are both 1. And you know that for an RS flip-flop, if both set and reset are 1, then the previous state is retained. If J is 0 and K is 1, now because J is 0, S becomes equal to 1. And what happens is that now the Q will switch to the 1 state whenever the clock pulse is decreasing. So when the clock pulse goes from 1 to 0, that is when Q will switch to 1. Conversely, when j is 1 and k is 0, so now because k is 0, r becomes 1, and now q will switch to 0. When the clock pulse goes from 1 to 0. So when the clock pulse, so we say when the clock pulse is decreasing, or it's on, it has what's it called? It's called the negative edge of the clock. So when the clock, so this is your clock, this is called the positive edge because it's increasing. This is called the negative edge because it's decreasing. So whenever the clock is on its negative edge and it's going from the up to the down state, so in the down state, that is when so q switches to 0 on the negative edge, and then it stays at 0 when the clock is down. And when j and k are both 1, you can check this. Q and q bar become opposite. So q goes to what was initially q bar. Q bar goes to what was initially q. So this state is called the toggle state. It's like a toggle switch. If it was 1 before, it becomes 0 now. If it was 0 before, it becomes 1 now. So this is your JK flip-flop.